She didn't know she had already surpassed them. She didn't know the lens had shifted, had risen, had stopped on her. The music was alive. Not just sound, it was a living thing, crashing against her chest, flowing through her bones, finding its way into muscles that knew it better than any thought ever could. That raw, relentless rhythm she couldn't ignore, that she didn't want to ignore. Yun wasn't thinking. Her body had taken over. She stood at the top of a small hill, in the middle of a park, in the middle of Seoul, in the middle of thousands of people who didn't know she existed. And she began to move. Not by the rules, not by any pattern, by her own. She took the rhythm and dismantled it to its atoms, stretched it, reshaped it, made it raw, more real, more dangerous, as if the music in her hands had become a knife that only she knew how to sharpen. Her body spoke a language nobody had taught her, one she had learned herself, in running along the sea, in fights in schoolyards, in those long nights when the only thing between her and the darkness was her own stubborn skin. Nobody expected this. Nobody ever expects Yun. The crowd below was loud, overheated, full of girls waiting for their idols with everything they had: attention, time, heart. But on the hill, something was happening that nobody had ordered. Something wild, uncontrolled, real. When she executed the flip, clean, precise, without a single flaw, and landed softly, almost silently on both feet, applause rippled up from the crowd. Brief, surprised, scattered, but loud enough for her to know. They were no longer ignoring her, and that uncomfortable, prickling awareness of eyes upon her frightened her more than anything else could have that day. She turned on her heel. Time to leave. That was when everything changed. Somewhere in the crowd, there was a lens. Large, professional. Too professional for a random event in a park. Yun didn't see it, but someone else saw her. Someone whispered quietly to the cameraman. The words were brief, only a few syllables, but the cameraman understood immediately. The lens shifted toward the crowd for a moment, then stopped, rose, focused, and came to rest on her, on the girl in the gray hoodie at the top of the hill, on a body that moved as if nobody was watching, on a face that wasn't seeking attention and, for precisely that reason, commanded it. The camera was filming. Yun didn't know, and had she known, it would have mattered to her as much as the rain. The song ended. Screams dissolved into applause. The boys bowed and disappeared from the stage as if they had never been there. Yun lowered her arms. For a moment, she stood like that, slightly out of breath, with drops of sweat at her temples, with that feeling in her body she knew only when she ran, or danced, or fought. That feeling of being alive. She said to herself. I should head home. Only now did she remember her old problem. Running without direction always had the same downside. She never knew where she was. And once darkness began to fall, even the little sense of direction she possessed faded away. The park suddenly felt too large, the roads branching off around it unfamiliar, foreign. Somewhere deep inside she sensed it, quiet, almost inaudible, that this day was not finished with her yet. She began to descend the hill slowly. As she walked, she stretched her arms and shoulders, closing a chapter that had opened on its own and that she had no intention of reading to the end. Her body was still full of rhythm, but her mind was already searching for the way home. Excuse me, may I interrupt you? The voice stopped her mid-step, deep, calm, too polished for someone who approaches a stranger in the middle of a park. That voice you learn in the corridors of power, where words are not just words, but instruments. Before her stood a man, middle-aged, groomed to the point of absurdity, an ironed jacket without a single crease, immaculate shoes that had not been made for walking on park paths. The posture of someone accustomed to being listened to, who had probably decided that morning in front of the mirror that today he would be persuasive. Jan measured him in a single second. She learned everything she needed to know. "I can," she nodded. "But only for a moment. I'm in a hurry." "Would you like to meet the group Ta-Rok in person?" A pause. That deliberate, theatrical pause with one single purpose, to let the name resonate. "I'm their manager." The way he said it, that emphasis, that slight tilt of the head expecting surprise, excitement, at least one single cry of recognition. Jan thought, look at him puffing himself up. One more breath and he'll burst. "Not interested," she said, and walked past him. The man's jaw literally dropped. For a moment, just a moment, before he summoned all his professional reflexes to his aid. In his entire career, nobody had ever turned their back on him like that, without hesitation, without explanation, without even a single glance back. He snapped out of it and hurried after her. In a second, he had switched tactics, because he was good at that, switching tactics, because he lived by it. He noticed immediately that her behavior had nothing in common with fan hysteria. No squealing, no phone held in the air, none of that particular gleam in the eyes he knew in everyone who swore by the name of Ta-Rok. A pretty girl in worn clothes, behaving as if this entire circus was as relevant to her as a weather forecast. What a waste, he thought. Such potential, such a loss. "There's just one more thing I really need to tell you." Jan stopped, not because she was interested, but because she had detected a change in his voice, that subtle, barely perceptible shift in tone that only someone who has been alone long enough and has learned to read people better than books would catch. She turned, her face closed off, her gaze sharpened, turned cold, that look that said things she didn't voice aloud. "You're walking on thin ice, and you don't know it. I have a very good business offer for you." Pathetic, she thought. Cheap tricks. Not on me. "Same answer as before," she said, loudly, clearly, without a shred of doubt. "Not interested." And turned away. The man boldly, or foolishly, the line was thin, grabbed her arm. "Your fee would be substantial. About 6 solid salaries." Jan stopped. She turned slowly, and this time she looked at him differently. Not with indifference, not with cool assessment, but with that particular searching gaze she had only when she was looking for truth, when she was looking through words, through gestures, through the mask someone had put on that morning and hoped would last until evening. She was looking for lies, panic, deception. She found none. What she saw surprised her more than any lie would have. His voice softened. His posture collapsed. Slightly, almost imperceptibly, but enough. His shoulders bent. And in that moment, he was no longer the inflated man in a suit who managed careers and inspired dread in the corridors of the music industry. He was someone trying to survive the day. "The boys ask me to bring you in. Personally. If I don't succeed." A brief pause. In that pause was everything. Fear, pride, desperation, and that small but undeniable dignity of someone who is asking for the first time in their life and doesn't quite know how. "I have a family at home. 2 small children." And immediately, in that moment, without warning, it happened. The words found a crack. They broke through the armor. Not because they were necessarily true. Perhaps they were, perhaps not. But Yun had one real weakness in her entire carefully constructed system of defense. One single place where the concrete was thinner than paper. People who pleaded. She had never known how to say no when someone asked. Not when she was small and alone and the neighbor came with a bowl of soup. Not when Ha'un first looked at her with those glassy eyes of hers. Not now. Never. And of course, 6 salaries. 6.